back. Hope you're having a good day. One of my many Ficus microcarpa over a rock here. Before I go start doing too much, I'm just gonna get this pot even on the even on my little turntable here. And some of you guys may get tired of me showing how this is just normal stuff here, but there are some people that panic when they see things like that and they think something's wrong with their tree. Sometimes I just like to show that this is just perfectly normal. I have most of my trees sitting on pallets, and these weeds just kind of, or these roots just kind of go around the boards of the pallet. If this was any lighter of a tree, and that root's now poking out there some. See, look at that. If this was any lighter of a tree, I'd try to pull it up out of there and twist it a little bit so that that same root wouldn't come out of that same hole. But, you know, you just saw how easily that broke off. It really will not be too much longer before I'm going to have to repot this, just simply because the pot is getting ready to fall apart on me here soon. Let's see, I don't really have it set up. I'm not going to spin the whole thing around just yet. There we go. If you've been watching the channel for a while, this is kind of one of my, like, I'll call it like an ill-conceived one, or project, if you will. In that I was kind of distributing out some cuttings. And this one, I mean, you know, if you look at how thick the trunk is now, even with some of these, you know, other roots coming out here and everything, this was the smallest and the weakest, and I just happened to have a rock sitting there with some dirt already in the pot. I just kind of threw it right on there, and I was just like, well, if that thing survives, it survives. And sure enough, it survived. It really kind of, at first, I thought it just looked like a horrible project just altogether. Was, you know, doing all kinds of consideration of maybe taking it off the rock, all kinds of things. But you'll see when I get it kind of hard pruned here in a minute, that it's kind of coming into its own. And sometimes when I see people, especially with tropical trees, they grow so quick. I see people with little cuttings and they say, you know, oh, what can I do to make this more interesting? Sometimes if you just really don't have any ideas, the best thing you can do is just go ahead and just let it grow for a little bit. And this thing is now actually kind of coming into its own, looking well. I don't know if you guys kind of notice, it's got several yellow leaves. And almost all my ficus that I have left alone for quite a while are doing that, where they just get a bunch of the yellow leaves this time of year, and they always have lots of little shoots on the interior and everything that you don't want to keep, or I don't want to keep. I'm going to try to get the camera at a little bit of a bender angle here, and I'm just going to get in here and start working. Alright, that should give you a little bit of a better view of it now. Adjusted the camera some, and I also took my knob cutters, that root sticking out of the bottom there. I would actually consider breaking some of the pot a little bit lower, but you guys can probably see right there that it's cracked down there, and like I said, soon it'll all just fall apart. Sometimes in the hobby here, I'm thinking like one day I'm gonna magically win the lottery or something, and suddenly I can afford nice pots for all my big trees like this. But the bigger the tree, the more expensive the pot. I really am starting to like the little trees a little bit more, just for the reason of big pots are expensive and it takes a lot of substrate to fill it in there and everything. But anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and get to work. Take a little bit of a different approach than I usually do. Kind of go in usually hog wild at first. I'm going to try to get in and get all of the obvious ones that definitely have to come out, little twigs and stuff, and then just try to work my way around it a little bit slower. I may wind up taking all the green off, getting wire on it. I may wind up kind of almost giving it a light prune and just decide to let it go for the rest of the early spring here and see what to do it a little bit later in the summer. Alright, so that was actually me from a chair just cutting down all the branches that were coming straight down. And every now and again I'm getting a little bit too elderly to really kind of see and notice everything. But from what I can tell, that actually makes a nice little difference there. I have decided I'm not going to get wire on it today, so there's no sense in me taking any more leaves off than necessary. So now from up here, there still are plenty of little twigs that need to come out altogether, and so that's what I'll do now. Taking out maybe some of the very oldest leaves of some of the older branches, especially the ones that are yellowing. Also, since I'm not planning on getting wire on it, try to exercise, and that would be just kind of moving around the twigs some and everything. Some of the old prune marks will kind of start flaking off when I do that too. Alright, sometimes as I work around, I feel like it's an odd angle I try to get myself at there. Did want to just kind of show that I've done, well, I've got about half what I plan on pruning, or a little more than half of what I plan on pruning over here. Haven't hit this little section here yet, but sometimes it's hard to see the details in here. This little twig is just kind of growing in. It's coming out of the main branch, right out of the spot that another branch is, and then also growing in. So I took that one off. If I was getting wire on it today, I'd leave this whole branch on here and turn it away from this other pad here. But since I'm not, I'm just going to cut it off, and then that'll let all the energy from that little twig go into that one, and then I can, that'll shoot out that way. It'll shoot up actually, but then I can wire down that way when I do go to put wire on it later on. And then pretty much the same thing with this one here. If I was putting wire on it today, especially if I was going to do the little twigs, they're a little bit too small for wire right now. That's why I'm not, but alright, so I was going to put the camera back at a bit of more of a normal angle and try to give a close-up of how cool I think the trunk is here. And I started noticing that some of these aged parts of the trunk are actually flaking off. I flaked off a couple of these just with my fingernail there. So I think I'm going to take my knife and just kind of see how much of that just kind of crumbles apart. I have seen a few ants wandering around. But I don't see any in here. Very interesting. Alright, with the camera off there for a second, I did run the Dremel down in there. That's like some rotted out wood. And then right in here was just some heartwood that really wasn't bad, but just a heartwood of where it lost this part here anyway. Alright, and there we go. Just trying to get down to some green wood in there. I think this will still turn out just fine. I was a little surprised to see that. Honestly, had I known that was there, I might have left all the foliage and just come and did that. That was just an afterthought right at the end. I just kind of picked at that bark a little bit. Didn't realize just what was happening on the inside there. But now I've left all this growth out here. And actually, let's go ahead and go back to a normal look here. Alright, and there, just a little bit of a better look at it there from a normal angle, from what it looked like before. Trying to find some kind of an angle I might be able to get it at to incorporate that scar in there. If you notice, it's got a thick root dropping down here. And that may well be kind of taking over some of the tree. And then that might be why some of this is kind of like rotting away there. But then the roots coming off of that all look good. These all look good. This one has a little bit of rotten stuff here at the end. But that's right where it goes in the substrate. I'm going to leave that alone. I don't want to pick that off. I think the water will channel that out of there okay. And since I didn't take all the growing tips and all the foliage off, it really should just push out. I left plenty of energy here. Should push it right on out. Had I known that was going to turn out like that, I might have even just left everything on there and just let that continue to go and callus over and stuff. But I do think it'll be fine here.